Welcome back to my channel, everyone. This is going to be the last, third and final video in my series where I diarize my journey from a UCT Actuarial Science graduate all the way to work. And if you haven't watched parts 1 and 2, check out my channel, A Quant in SA. I think after that, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put more effort into the channel being more about life hacks. So I bought a house. I bought a flat in Cape Town in 2019, and there's so much I don't know. And I bought a car recently, but I already had a car that my mom bought for me for my 21st, and there's a lot I don't know about that car, and there's a lot I don't know when I actually bought my car. So that's also something that I want to speak to. I want to speak about how I chose my bank accounts. I want to speak about how I chose where and how to invest. I'm not going to be teaching anyone how to go on easy equities because I see a lot of that and I lost a lot of money there. So I don't want to do that. I was a rep under supervision, so I don't have full license to give financial advice. I didn't do the full 3 years. And I'll explain why, because I moved around quite a bit, right, in terms of jobs. So this is how it's going to be set up. The last time I spoke about, okay, I just got a job, and now I'm going to detail that. So I'm going to split the video into 4 parts. 1, my first job post-uni, so that was in asset management. Part 2, my second job at a bank, which was my move to Joburg. My third job was at a hedge fund, also in Joburg, and then my 4th job is my current job, which is at a bank, but like I'm in insurance now. So if any of those particular ones interest you, please skip right to that part so that we make the best use of our time, right? Because time is money. Okay, so first job, it's 2017 around September, and I just realized that I got 2 courses that I need to come back to the following year. So one was an STA course and the second one was a finance course. So I specialized in actuarial science, in quantitative finance, which at UCT means instead of models and quanties, you do finance 3, right? So that's the specialization, but I do the same statistics, I do the same mathematics, and then it's just that 3rd year where we kind of branch out, right? So that's something that I needed to do, and it was a 1st semester course and a 2nd semester course. So there are no 2 ways about it. So I found a guy, shout out to Shoni, in my class who was in the same situation. We went to the stats department, can we have a special SAP? We went to the finance department, can you look, is there some sort of way where we can graduate? Can you look at our credits? Can we just come out? We want to write the exams, but like we don't want to have to come back to another year. Because for me, it was a thing of res. So I'm not Cape Townian, right? I'm from the Eastern Cape. So I was going to have to stay in Cape Town, and Cape Town, the res at that time was about 40, 50K, and then food and all of that. I was going to spend like 60K staying in Cape Town for 1 course. And the course at that time was about 6,500. I stand corrected. The finance course, I don't remember how much stats was. So for me, it just financially, it wasn't going to make sense. And I was working at ICTS at Forest, and because I didn't apply for res for the following year, what I was going to do is I was going to try and stay off campus, and I was still going to work, but at the Baxter Labs or at Upper Campus. I'd already spoken to my manager. She was very I absolutely loved it. That was my first job, and I had a really good relationship with the lady that handled us. Leanne, I think. Leanne, yeah. So that was the plan. For me, financially, it wasn't going to make sense, right? Cool. So what had happened is I'm reaching out to Vodacom as well, because Vodacom was my bursar and they had right of first refusal, and they had said they're not going to pay for these 2 courses. They were going to pay maybe for res, but they weren't going to pay for the 2 courses because stats was a repetition and finance, I don't know, but they weren't going to pay. I had to pay out of pocket, so that's why I was doing the mathematics. So I reached out to Vodacom. I'm like, hi, can I apply for the grad program? I have these 2 courses. I don't mind staying in Cape Town because they had some, like a lot of the grads, the intake would go to the Midrand branch here in Joburg, but they had some that were in Cape Town. They had a Belleville office, and a friend of mine, Tumelo, actually works there, or worked there. He started there and then he moved up to Joburg. So for me, that was the thought process. Vodacom's like, no, we want you with an actual degree. So I was like, okay, fine. So I'm scuttling career services. I was interviewing at different asset management companies, and the vision there was I wanted to have something to do, something to keep me busy. Otherwise, I was going to go crazy with just one course per semester on campus. Fine. So Shoni and I are chatting, and we're on the same page about this. The faculty is like, no, we're like, okay, we respect that. And then we're going out and we're searching for jobs. So he was also sponsored by a company, and I won't mention it, but an asset management and actuarial company. And he managed to get in. But before Shoni got in there, he went to an interview that he had found on the career services site. The company was Prescient, and Prescient had a graduate program. And he comes back and he's pumped from the from the interview. I think the only thing that they weren't on the same page about was the fact that he wanted to write his actuarial board exams instead of CFA. And I was like, but they were fine with everything else, that you have to be on campus. And he's like, yeah, they just asked me, can I do both? I'm like, are you for real? He's like, yes. I'm like, do you mind if I apply? Because obviously if it's something that you're keen on. He's like, look, I'm keen, but it's not my first preference because we're not on the same what's in about studies. I'm like, okay, cool. Send me the link. Shoni sends me the link. I go on career services and I apply. I think 2-3 days they call me out for an interview, right? I do the Googling, interview prep, all of that, and Shoni's already prepped me. I get there, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm very good at interviewing. I'm really good at interviewing. I've got a lot of self-confidence, and it's a conversation, and I research and I ask questions, and I'm curious naturally, so that really puts me in a good position, and I think I communicate well, which also really helps me. So I'm sitting there with HR, and I'm sitting there with the CEO, and he's pushing. They want to scale. They've got a new grad program. They want people who are going to grow with the business. I mentioned CFA before he mentioned CFA. Why? Because Shoni had told me about CFA, and I'd looked into it, and I was like, I specialize in quantitative finance. It is something that was on my radar, and I was kind of sick of actuarial science. I mean, I wasn't doing that well. I was passing, but not well. So I was like, I actually do want to try something outside of my core degree. So I mentioned CFA before he does. I mentioned that I've learned programming. I'm keen on it. And then it's like, okay, cool. I come out of there and I'm feeling good. Do you understand? I think a week passes. This is October, November now. A week passes, and look, I didn't even apply for RES for 2018 because I have that thing at the back of my mind, but I don't want to pay 50,000 to stay in Cape Town for 2 courses. Do you understand what I mean? And we'd had that blended learning, but I was like, I also can't go home and keep flying for tests. Like, a lot was going through my mind, and then they call me and they're like, you've received the offer, can we please have your ID number to finalize the contract? So I didn't put my ID number on my CV, right? So I give the lady the what's name, and then it comes through. The offer comes through. First thing I do, obviously, divide by 12, because I'm like, how much is going to hit my account? I had been earning up to that point about 1.4, 1.2, 1.4, depending on shifts at ICTS. And previously, I worked at Bargain Books in Hemingway's, East London, and I'd earn about 3.5 during holiday season. So I'd work in December and maybe half of Jan, depending on when Varsity opened. And before that, my very first job is I'd actually worked as a dining hall monitor at Grasha. So I was just handing out meal cards. I always like to joke that, I was getting paid like 800 Rand just to do this. Hi, good morning. Hi, good morning. But I met a lot of people that way. I met a lot of girls that I worked with that were really funny, that made the shift work really enjoyable. And okay, so I'm looking at this money, I'm like, and I don't have a degree, mate. I don't know if I'm allowed to say, but yeah, the money was significant. It's if you do your research, you'll find that what I was earning in 2018, or what I was promised to earn in 2018, is actually commensurate with what the average salary is in South Africa in 2022. I don't know if that's sad or good, because I do understand that finance salaries are typically a bit higher than all other sectors. But the money was good, right? And I said yes, you know what I mean? Because I'd been to about 3 or 4 interviews. There was one interview I walked out of in Cape Town. It was, I want to say data science-y, and I left because I didn't like the office. It was like cubicles, and I'd done the Access DB, I'd done the test, the Excel test as well, and I was doing well, but I didn't want to come back for the next day. I finished that day and I left, and I emailed them to please remove me from the process. because the cubicle was just not a place that I wanted to work in. It just wasn't my idea of where to work. And I'd done vacation work before, and it didn't line out. So I'd done vacation work with big companies. I'd worked at, I forget the name now, but I'd also worked at PwC for about 2 weeks, and I'd worked at Medscheme Holdings in what's her name, I'd worked at Medscheme Holdings in Salt River for 2 weeks, with Ola, shout out Ola. And I really enjoyed those. So those were my ideas of the ideal working places. So what I was seeing there, I mean, the guys had like wheat bix in the cubicle. Oh my, I was a kid, and it just didn't align with my brand at the time. So I interviewed at Perpetua, and I met with the guy, I forget his name now, but like he's a big guy in asset management in Claremont. And Claremont would have been brilliant, right? I would have literally taken a jammy and applied for a raise and all of that. And the guy basically said, look, if you're going to be here for 6 months and then move on, it's not going to make sense for us to train you, because that's when you start delivering after the first 6 months, etc., etc. So people weren't looking at me because I didn't have enough time to invest. And the main thing was this Vodacom thing, which I was also very upfront about at the interview. I was like, look, Vodacom has right of first refusal as soon as I have my degree, so that's something to be mindful of. The grad program was 24 months, and they were like, okay, cool, it's fine. We're willing to do that, and then we'll see after the 12 months when the degree comes, we'll see what Vodacom has to say. Cool. I sign, I join, and then I go on the Facebook group for Forest Hill. That was my raise at the time. And I wanted to go and look for accommodation that side, and I didn't want to go look alone because it's all the way in Tokai. And I found out that Ms is also looking. I'm like, and then he's like, and then we found out that we live in the same place. So I didn't have my car because I had an accident earlier in 2017, and my mom had asked me to drive it back. Well, not me to drive it back. My uncle came and he fetched my car. I left him the keys with a friend because I was here in Joburg for the Investec Navigate program. So I didn't have a car at the time. So Ms. and I were basically going to search for accommodation that side. And at the same time, we were going to save on costs, like, well, safety for me as well, but also like save on costs in terms of Ubering and stuff like that. And then we find out that Ms. and I are going to the same grad program. Like, what? So I was really happy about that. I knew him from Reyes. He was in Highschool in 2016, and then I was in Highschool in 2017. So that was Prescient. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. So I went to my first rotation, and I was sort of a trainee business analyst, where I came across automation, which is something that I love to this day. So in every role that I've gone in, that's what I specialize in, right? I go in for a company that's looking to scale up and streamline their processes, and like I can call myself a process automation specialist. That's how I started my career, and that's something that I really enjoy, and that's why I've been able to be fluid and move throughout the different types of industries, right? Because a lot of financial services stuff runs on Excel. A lot of it is old. A lot of the systems can be better, and who doesn't want to get better, right? So that's something that I like. It's a role that I really enjoy. I could go and work at Sasol tomorrow, and there'd be a place for me because of the line of work that I do. It doesn't matter the industry. They're going to need some processes streamlined, and when I go to Sasol, all they need to brief me in, this is what happens, etc., etc., at different stages, and this is what needs automated, and this is the expected output. So that gives me a lot of flexibility, and like I said, it's the reason I was able to move across different industries and still do really well within my career. So that's Prescient. I moved to Muizenberg. I lived in Steenberg for 6 months in a house where I was staying with like an old couple. It was nice, but then I wanted to date, and like it's very awkward when you've got someone visiting and you live in a house with like old people. And then I moved to False Bay, and then he dumped me, but it's fine. I moved to False Bay, and I absolutely loved it. I used to go to the Bluebird market, and I really enjoyed myself. What can I say? Like, it was a really nice place to live in. I moved to Akayalicha for a little bit, Elitabak. I didn't like it. I moved there to save a bit of money because I wanted to save like aggressively so that I could buy a house. But I just didn't like the environment. I mean, I'm from a township, and I moved to the southern suburbs, and I lived there for 5 years. So me moving to the township again, it wasn't the same me that was moving back there. And I think I hadn't thought about that, and you get me. It wasn't the same me. Like, I walk around in shorts all day, every day. I walk around like this, and that isn't something that you can do as freely in a township. And I'd gotten so used to that, and it just became a part of me, and I just couldn't deal with the constant, feelings and of not feeling safe, and just general feelings of every time I pass, someone has something to say, some people grab you. So I moved to Muizenberg the following year. So the following year, I did 2 stints. I did a 6-month in Prescient Fund Services, because Prescient Holding was my employer, the group. Then I did another 6 months in Prescient Investments, and then Prescient Investments gave me an offer. So I didn't get to do Prescient Securities, which is where Ms. went on his second rotation. And then I got a permanent offer, so I missed out on Prescient Securities. And the 4th rotation would have been Prescient Life, but they sold the license to 27-4 during my rotation, or during my first rotation. So that was not going to work. So what I was going to do is I would have done Prescient Securities, and then I would have done another 6 months. I had to wait on the offer because I had to now apply to Vodacom. So first semester the exam went well, second semester I still had to write, but I could see the degree coming together. So what I did is I flew to Midrand and I applied for Vodacom. There were 2 bursary, names. The one was in Cape Town, funny enough, which is why I don't understand why I had to fly here. Like, I video called the manager, but I think that was just a miscommunication. And then the second one, the manager was based here, and they explained the role, and at the end, I think we were gelling, like we were doing really well. And I had a friend who was also on the bursary. She actually linked up with me because I told her I was coming to Joburg. She met with me after the interview at Vodacom in Midrand, and I was keen on Vodacom because it's big, and I wanted to come to Joburg. I've always wanted to come to Joburg, and it was big, and more than anything, I wanted the money. You understand? I'm not even going to lie, I wanted the money. But when he explained the role, everything we were keen. And then at the end, he asked me, how good is your Excel? Now remember, I'm working in a company that hired me to essentially automate things off of Excel. Do you understand? Investment research, models, spreadsheets, like income fund and money market spreadsheet. That was actually my very first project, and something I was really excited about. That's where I picked up VBA. So I'm working in a company that does that, and now I'm being asked how good is my Excel, and I was like, look, it's a 6 and I'm comfortable. And I think that's where, the interview fell apart, because for me, I honestly knew that I did not want to work in Excel. I fallen in love with process automation. That's what I loved. I loved the broader industry I was in, which was asset management, right? But more than anything, I'd fallen in love with process automation and just business processes, and seeing something that was slow free up time because I played a part in it, because I saw how to make it quicker, I saw how to make it better, I saw where we can take a shortcut, I saw how we can speed up things. And I like that thank you from stakeholders at the end. So I knew like I wouldn't enjoy the job. I would get paid a lot in Midrand, and I would thrive in Joburg because of the general environment and how different it is from Cape Town. But for me, it was like, look, at this stage of my career, the money can wait. I'm not there now. Then I was, but like at this stage, run me my money. So what I did is I moved. I was like, and then the second interview with Vodacom, with the manager in Cape Town, there he just asked me, what was your honors project on? And I'm like, I don't have honors. And that was the end of the interview, which I thought was quite, because he had my CV. My CV didn't say I had honors. So I think that was poor research on his end, and I'm lucky that it wasn't my only interview. Otherwise, it would not have been a good use of my time. Fine. So Vodacom didn't send an offer, and I was fine with that. I was perfect with that, actually. And then I just signed the offer that I got from Prescient. Cool. So 2019 January, I started as a permanent, what was it called? Quantitative analyst. But I've changed it to quantitative developer on my LinkedIn. That's how I started at Prescient in the investment management now. Not Prescient Holdings. I was a quantitative developer or quantitative analyst at Prescient Investment Management. I worked under the chief data scientist, and he was a really respected guy. taught me, like I'm so grateful for him. Mario is still a reference on my CV, major part of my career, who I am, and how I feel about myself in the workplace. I never came across I never came across imposter syndrome, even though I'm a black female and in asset management it's white male dominated. I never felt other in the workplace. I never felt I was unheard, and that's all through the confidence I think he instilled in me. So I was very grateful to have come across like a personality like him so early on in my career, because nothing can shake me from here. You cannot move me, like you cannot shake my confidence. You cannot make me feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. I speak up in meetings now. I'm overly confident for some, but like, who cares? Fine. And then that was my stint at Prescient. Oh, I moved to Muizenberg. Oh, I loved it. I moved to Muizenberg in 2019 Jan. I got a 2-bed apartment in Junecrest. I tried to buy it, but like I couldn't afford it at the time. I could afford it, but like at a stretch, and I didn't want to stretch myself at the time. And so I ended up buying in Actuary, but like that I'll speak to in another video. But like it was so nice. I lived right by the beach. I had my car again. I went and I fetched it with Alungile. Shout out to Alungile. Alungile and I went to fetch it, and this was now when I had my learners again. I still didn't have a license. Cape Town was so forgiving. I drove with a learner's license and I kept renewing it. Well, not renewing, my learners would expire and then I would go and write it again. I drove like that from 2017 up until I left Cape Town in 2020. But as soon as I came to Joburg, I knew I had to get a license because JMPD. So yeah, I had my car. I would drive to the beach whenever I wanted to. And then at the end of 2019, I decided I wanted to leave Cape Town. And my siblings and my cousins came to visit, the little ones, and I hosted them in my apartment. And they absolutely loved it. We would walk to the beach, we would walk to the market. It was December holidays, and yeah, they absolutely loved it. And I loved that for myself as well. So this is end of 2019. Fine. Then I decide I want to move to Joburg. Oh, at Prescient, I wrote the CFA level 1 once, and then I failed. And then I didn't try again until I moved this side. I wrote again, and I also failed here. So I haven't tried again. And now that I'm in insurance, I'm picking up my actuarial board exams again. So I moved to, it's 2019 now, and I decided I want to move to Joburg. That speaks to my second job, which was at the Green Bank. I moved to retail banking. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't quite understand it. I was interested in investment banking because I'd worked in asset management, and we'd host investment bankers at Prescient, right? Because they would be the ones selling us the script, and they would be the ones explaining their pricing and their reasoning for who's coming to market. So that's what I enjoyed, that's what I was familiar with, coming from asset management. But first prize was obviously asset management, but asset management is smaller in Joburg, and it's more difficult to get in. And I genuinely wanted to move to Joburg, and for me, like, going to a bank was like, okay, cool, they'll pay me more money, I'll stay there until I have to leave again. So I moved this side to retail banking. Loved Joburg, the city. I loved it. Funny enough, I got the gig in March, and I wanted to move in June, April. So I was going to do the two weeks of April, so my notice for the month, but I ended mid-April. Then I was going to go home for 2 weeks. Then here I was going to start on the 4th of May because the 1st and the 2nd are like public holidays. But obviously Cyril was like, you're not going anywhere. So I spent time in my apartment, and then Nedbank sent me credentials to log onto my personal computer. And I wasn't doing much for the first month, to be honest. I was literally reading on their models. I was going into meetings. So I could afford to do that on my WhatsApp. I wasn't accessing any of the data yet. So it wasn't like a sensitive issue. And I used VPN to log on, so it was fine. And then I finally moved here my dad and I moved on June 16th. So he went from the Eastern Cape to my place in Cape Town. And then we drove here, and it was amazing. He drove most of the way because my learners had expired. And one of the cops on the roadblocks actually took it away. and asked us to change seats. So he drove the full, I think it was 16 or 17 hours. I'm like super grateful for him for that. And then I loved Joburg. I loved the environment. I went to work and I went to go pick up my laptop officially. I hadn't met my manager at the time. The work was a credit modeling and impairments team, and I think the job spec was overspec'd, but that's just my opinion. And it was very different to what I'd done, it was very different to what I'd enjoyed. I stayed there for about 12 months. I interviewed outside. I was getting interviews, but I wasn't getting, they weren't being successful because there were big differences between the job specs I'd read and what the work actually entailed. And then I got an internal move and I absolutely loved my new manager. Shout out to Herman, although I don't think he'll ever see this. But like it was a Nedbank cards team, and what we were doing there was exactly what I'd done in Prescient, which is process automation. A lot needed to be automated, and I was working under a guy named Sean. Shout out to Sean if he sees this. And Sean was a master in that, and he was keen to have me in his team. He was a senior quant and I was going to be a quant under him, because he'd come across a lot of people and very few of them actually enjoyed the type of work that needed to be done in that team. So he was grateful to have me and I was grateful to have him, because it's very nice reporting to someone who's also technical, which is the kind of role that I'm in now at the Blue Bank. So I absolutely enjoyed the type of setup. Fine. And then I moved because Nedbank was having some sort of, there was something called Project Phoenix in retail banking, where they were doing some reshuffles, and Sean was going to be moved to another team and I was going to stay in my team. And then the hedge fund guys approached me. I hadn't applied that year. I'd applied previously when I was still in the credit modeling team. They said they have a space now, they'd like to chat to me. It was in Rivonia. I went for a drive. I spoke to them. They promised me the world. It made sense. I said, okay, like that, in addition to Sean leaving, I was like, okay, I wasn't looking for a move. I wasn't open, but like, here's an opportunity, let me go. I made that move. I stayed there for about 8 months. I didn't enjoy it. I'm not going to speak a lot on that. It wasn't a great experience for me. And after that, I moved to the Blue Bank, which is where I am now, and that is insurance. Again, I'm in process automation, so it's F&B life. And what I do essentially is I work in the claims and fraud analytics team. The three of us, my manager and one other colleague. She specializes in fraud, I specialize in claims. And what we do is we're building out processes, because F&B life is quite new. It's about 7 years, and there's a lot to be done, and I absolutely love it. I mean, I'm on study leave right now, and like all I'm thinking about is like the tasks that I want to do as soon as I come back from my exam. And I'm excited, man. My manager genuinely seems to believe in my growth. And I think I could do really well there, because the nice thing with process automation and why I chose it is that your work can actually make a lasting impact. Like, to be honest, I'm not like a free the world volunteer type, although I do volunteer at Excel at Uni, where I'm a mentor to two guys who are going into asset management. One is at UP doing his honors, and one is at Stellenbosch finishing his final year in investments. So I do sort of, try and pay it back, which is something that also this channel tries to, or works towards. But like, I'm not a sacrifice myself to make others feel better. So the nice thing about my work is that I automate processes that remain long after I've left. At the same time, I get paid really well. I'm not going to speak to my salary because it's uncouth, and I don't think I'm the highest paid. I actually think I'm just below average, and that's also just because I move a lot, so I don't actually get the lasting impact on my salary in terms of staying and saying, look, I think I came in under market, let's try this and this and this. And that's something I'm going to try at F&B Life, because I want those bonuses, man. I want to stay long enough to get the bonuses. I want to stay long enough to pay off my car. I want to stay long enough to pay off my house. I mean, I have an aim to pay off my house in 3 years, and I want to pay off my house in 7 years. And it's doable, because I'm not like a fancy, and I'm not like a big spender, which is also something that I want to share, so that we are financially conscious. There's someone on TikTok, when I shared that I studied actuarialscience and I'm a quant, she asked me, what car do I drive? I asked why, and then she's like, I hear you guys make a lot of money. I'm like, up until March this year, I drove a 2008 Opel Corsa Light that my mom bought for me, and now I drive a 2022 Nissan NP200 because, you know, that for me made sense in terms of budget, it made sense in terms of insurance, it made sense in terms of fuel efficiency, and in terms of resale value, right? So I can always just sell it on. It's not going to lose as much value as a smaller car would have, right? Which was within my budget. My phone died. So I was saying about the 2022 Nissan NP200. I wanted a car that has a good resale value so that I can sell it on quite quickly if I need to, because my biggest thing is flexibility. I think I mentioned I want to work as long as I enjoy the work. So right now I'm okay with working 5 days a week, but in 3 to 5 years time, if I decide, look, I don't want to be working on a Friday, I want to be able to do that comfortably without having to change my lifestyle. So that's something that I'm cognizant about. And above and beyond, I genuinely like opening up my banking apps and looking at my, bank balance. I know that sounds silly, but like, that's always been something that has been very important to me, and that's what I have, and I always want to have that. And right now, the kind of life I have is being able to look at my bank balance and be like, I can buy anything that I want at any point in time. Obviously, like not non-curable stuff, because I want a MacBook, but like I'd have to borrow a portion of it to buy it, and I'm not really there. But I'm getting that probably in December. But yeah, that's something that's been very important to me, and that's something that I actually want to tackle on this channel, like a lot of the money hacks that I've come to get accustomed to. And it's not necessarily being frugal. It's like I've got short-term goals and long-term goals, and for me, like going through the whole UCT thing, actuarial science in general specifically, that was a long-term goal, because for me, I knew that irrespective of what my transcript looks like, and I promise you from 2015 onwards it doesn't look cute, irrespective of what it looks like, the actual degree holds so much value in the market that I can apply almost anywhere and get a callback at least. So my work experience speaks more now because I'm 5 years into my career. So my degree doesn't really, do you understand what I mean? But there are certain places that say they want the degree, and then the CV speaks for you. So for me, that was like a strategic long-term goal. I wanted something that would get me in the door. There are very few qualified actuaries in South Africa. There are even smaller number of black female ones. So that's something I'm cognizant of. So even if I don't manage to qualify, the fact that I attained the degree speaks volumes. And that's always, it was deliberate. It was deliberate, right? Because I said in my first video that I went into actuarial science because I wanted the money and I wanted the prestige. I was 16, I was 17 then. Today, I have the money. I'm not qualified, so I don't quite have the prestige. But I do know that it opens doors for you. And I'm not suggesting that people go into AXI if they weren't thinking about it. But if you were deciding and you weren't sure, then I think it's definitely a worthwhile degree. If you don't go into AXI, maybe a maths and stats, maths and comp sci and stats type of degree, because it gets you the quant roles, it gets you the actuarial analyst roles, it gets you the quant developer roles, it gets you the data science roles. Basically, companies have problems and they need someone who can come in and do the problem solving, and the STEM degree basically tells them, look, that you're a problem solver, you think in a certain way. I promise you, they're not going to come here and you're going to have to rewrite an annuities formula. You know what I mean? There's already a plug-in for that. There's already a a program for that. But they need someone who, when they say my annuity formula is broken, can go online, refresh their mind about what the annuity formula looks like, and tweak this one to perform as it was meant to. So that's the type of line of work I'm in. That's why I'm saying like I absolutely love it, because I think I'm a problem solver slash solutionist by nature, which is great for my career, but it's not so great for my personal life, because sometimes not all problems need to be solved. Sometimes things just need to be let go of if they're not working, and that's something that I learned the hard way to learn. But it's working great for my career. And if you've had different experiences with the degree, different experiences with the work and all of that, let me know below, and let me know what you think about my move from Cape Town to Joburg. I was actually in Cape Town in December. Oh, so nice. But I don't regret it, because for me, like, my whole vision is like, I am really good at my job, and what I don't want is my job to be me. In Cape Town, I didn't find myself outside of work, and in Joburg I do. I mean, I go to gym only. I don't do anything exciting, but I see a lot of people that look like me. I see a lot of people that are where I want to be. I see a lot of people that live where I want to live. I don't care about cars, but like, I see a lot of, girls that look like me driving nice cars as well. And that for me was very important, and that is 95% of why I left Cape Town. The other 5% is when I started looking at property to buy, I realized that it is insanely pricey. And for me, it was just like, and that's because only certain pockets of Cape Town are really developed and accessible, right? So it's your Southern Peninsula, it's your CBD, it's your southern suburbs, and it's the northern burbs. Here in Joburg, all areas have really nice places that are really accessible. I mean, I looked at Roodepoort before I understood how far away it is from Sandton. I considered, what else did I consider? I considered the Val, because it was very peaceful. It's the kind of vibe I like, when I thought we'd be online or working from home forever. So that's a nice thing about Gauteng. Like, everything is spread out, but like Joburg City or Joburg West, Joburg East, Ekurhuleni, they're all like really developed. So you could buy a place there and live really nice and have access to the same Woolworths, same Sasol garage, etc., etc. And in Cape Town, it's not like that. The pockets that have access to those places are insanely, expensive, and not seeing more people like me in the places I wanted to be at the time just didn't compute with me. But yeah, each unto his own. In December, when I went there, I hiked, of course. I went to the beach, of course. I did all of the things I really enjoyed when I was there, and I missed the outdoors. I missed those type of activities, but I have no regrets. Thank you for tuning in. Please check out my other videos. Let's chat in the comments. Let me know where your mind is at. I've said a lot. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in.